Hey everybody, welcome to the videos on the lineup building for Week 16 of the NFL season over on DraftKings, going over cash game and GBP strategy. And this is a fun one. This might be my favorite week of the season. I am loving the way roster construction is kind of unfolding at this point. Yes, we are going to have to deal with some COVID news, and that can be a bit tricky. We don't know if some guys are going to be playing or not, but we can't make assumptions. As of right now, I feel like we kind of get the idea of who's going to play or not, but as of right now, it can be a bit of a guessing game between some players. But yeah, I'm loving this slate. Maybe it's because I'm a chalk donkey and there's just so much good chalk on this slate, but I am excited to break this one down. And if you do find this video helpful in any way possible, make sure you would like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet already. If you want to take that one step further, become an official member over on Patreon. Link is down below in the description for that. And last but not least, this video is sponsored by PrizePicks. I'm sure most of you know what it is by now, but if you don't, it's daily fantasy sports simplified, just you versus the projections. There's no sharks, 150 max contests, or salary cap restrictions, or anything like that. Just you versus the props they offer each and every single day. And as of right now, when you sign up on PrizePicks, you can get a free money bonus. That's an instant deposit match up to $100 when you use code CPEN and tell them I sent you. I think it'll be it for the plugs for the most part, so without further ado, let's dive into today's video. And as always, my little disclaimer before we get started. The intent and purpose of this video is not for you to copy and paste the lineups that I build in this video. I am simply going through a process I would use to theoretically build a cash game lineup, and you can apply the same process to your own favorite plays and build your own lineups, because things are going to change by the time kickoff rolls around. I'm going to adjust my ownership projections. I'm going to use the eye optimizer, and things will get adjusted a little bit. Maybe sometimes I'd use the specific lineup, but it isn't a given any single weekend. So anyway, let's get started. So we'll start with the running back position, and as I always say, running backs are the most important parts to our lineup because those are the guys that are going to touch the ball the most. I want to make sure that the guys that I want, and I want stuck with some random running back that I don't want to play in cash games. They got to be my guys. I'm not going to just play whoever is the last piece fit. That's fine at the wide receiver 3 spot, tight end, defense, whatever it may be. Maybe even quarterback sometimes. But not going to sacrifice that for the running back position, so that's why we fill it out first. And this week at running back, I am looking to spend down a little bit. I have no interest in the guys up top, plus all the guys up top are out with COVID or they have an injury. So I'm not looking to really spend up here. If I was going to spend up a little bit, I think Cordell Patterson and Alexander Madison at $1,600 and $700 respectively are fine plays. Madison's more of a fringe cash play. Patterson is strictly in tournaments for me, but both find themselves in good spots or a good matchup. Patterson, great spot versus Detroit. Madison is just mainly with no Dalvin Cook. He's going to get all the volume, probably around 20-some touches, and that's perfectly fine with me, below $7,000. If we didn't have an overabundance of good cheap running backs this week, Madison would be quite chalky, but that's just not the case this week, as we have many, many good options, especially below $6,000, which is rare. I'm pretty much going to be living in cash games this week. And before we pick out the guys we want, I'm just going to go over my cash pool here. So we have James Robinson at $1,500 versus the Jets, David Montgomery, $5,700 versus Seattle Seahawks, and Nick Foles will be the quarterback for the Bears, so that'll be quite interesting. Probably kind of lean on David Montgomery in that game, and Seattle's been awful versus running backs. Miles Sanders, he's probably not going to score a touchdown. He hasn't. It's been a long time since he's scored. Jalen Hurts just keeps stealing his touchdowns, but great spot versus the Giants, and he just seems too cheap, coming off a very, very good game on the ground. Scoring down even more, we have Ronald Jones at $5,100, taking on the Leonard Fournette role, and they have a lot of missing bodies on that offense, so they're going to need a lot of Ronald Jones in this game. Not a great matchup versus Carolina, but I would take opportunity all day at a very cheap price point over a matchup any single time. And then if you scroll all the way down here, assuming no Austin Eckler this week, we have Justin Jackson at only $4,200, who is way too cheap on a good offense, should score a lot of points, great matchup versus Houston, and what should be a starting role, and he also catches passes. So it's kind of my cash game pool at running back this week. And the first guy I'm going to plug in is James Robinson at $5,900. If you liked him last week versus the Texans, you got to love him here versus the Jets, an even better spot. The Jets have been awful versus the run this year. Dead last DVOA. I mean, the most points were gained, nearly 40 specifically to running backs. He saw the most touches he saw all year last week. No Urban Meyer, 18 carries, 6 targets, 3 catches, good for over 20 total touches. Couldn't really establish the run last week versus the Texans because they did find themselves trailing, which was kind of surprising. They were 5-point favorites, just ended up not working out. But he should smash versus the Jets. If he's going to give me 20-plus touches below 6K, I mean, we know James Robinson's a good running back, so I like him a lot. So we're going to play him at $5,900, one of my favorite plays on the entire slate. And then after that, like I said, I do like David Montgomery, but I feel like he's more of a tournament play. Same with Miles Sanders. But Ronald Jones, he's going to be a guy I'm plugging in cash this weekend. There's just so many missing bodies for the Buccaneers, and it's really hard not to like him. In limited time last week versus the Saints, really tough matchup. 8 carries, 63 yards. Also had 2 targets and 2 catches. Good for around 9 fantasy points. Taking on a full-on Leonard Fournette role, we know how involved Fournette is in the passing game. Yes, the Buccaneers did sign Le'Veon Bell, but he is beyond washed. Not concerned about him whatsoever. So we're going to plug in Jones. Anytime you get a starting role on an offense that typically can score well, I know they're missing Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, so that's going to probably prohibit them a little bit, but they do get Antonio Brown back, which is pretty big, and they still have Gronkowski, and it's still Tom Brady quarterback. They got embarrassed last week facing Carolina. I think Ronald Jones will be just fine here, and the Buccaneers should be winning this game. And then I'm typically a guy that plugs in 3 running backs in cash games. There was 1 week this year where I didn't, and the running backs were awful, but that's just not the case this week. We have a lot of good running back plays. So I'm going to go 3 running backs, and you could make a case for a couple of guys. You can play Madison, but I'm just going to assume Austin Eckler is going to be out for this game, and if that's the case, Justin Jackson is just, this is a free square, $4,200. Like, I'm surprised he's not a little bit more expensive, but 13 carries last week versus KC, and Austin Eckler played in this game. He was just limited, but had 86 yards, 1 target, 1 catch, good for around 11 fantasy points. If he's going to get a full-on starting role, yes, Joshua Kelly will probably annoy us with the goal line touchdown, but Jackson should get enough work to pay off his price point quite easily, especially if he gets some passes thrown his way. And if you are playing Justin Herbert, I think it's fine if you play them both together because Jackson should be somewhat involved in the passing game. So we have our 3 running backs locked up, and we still have but just under $6,000 left remaining for the rest of our lineup, which is actually pretty good because usually when we plug in all our running backs, we're looking for some value already. But at this point, we have some added flexibility, which is why I love cheap running back weeks because it allows us to do a lot of things and make some fun lineups. Now, for me, we could either start with wide receivers or move on to quarterbacks. I can talk about my quarterback pool this week. It's only a few players, and I'm going to be honest, I don't really care who I have. I will be happy with either one, so I might just leave the quarterback spot near the very end and see who fits because I'll be fine either way. But for me, it's Justin Herbert, $7,200. Currently projecting him to be the highest owned quarterback on the slate. I think it'll be very close this week. As for right now, he is at the very top of the list, although I could see that changing, but it is very close up top. I also like Matthew Stafford versus Minnesota. Cooper Kupp will be very popular this weekend. I think Justin Jefferson will be pretty popular as a run back option, so people are going to want to put in Stafford to complete the stack, which I totally understand. You can play Kupp as a one-off this week, especially in cash games, but if you're playing tournaments and you have Kupp, I'd like to get Matthew Stafford in there. Jalen Hurts is also a fine cash game option, $6,400 versus the New York Giants, terrible versus the run. Jalen Hurts excels at that. He got some goal line touchdowns last week. No reason not to like Hurts at that price point. Also like Tyler Huntley at $6,000. Lamar Jackson's going to be out this week, and Huntley, in the 2 games, he's played significant time. He started last week versus Green Bay. Didn't start versus Cleveland, but he pretty much played the entire game. He's been good. I mean, I only had 17 points in that game versus Cleveland, but he didn't play the whole game. You got to keep that in mind. But versus Green Bay, nearly 36 points. He had 73, 45, and 40 rushing yards the past 3 weeks. I'm liking Huntley a lot. I think he's fine at $6,000. Just basically think of him as Lamar with a cheaper price point. So I'm actually fine with any of those quarterbacks. I'm actually going to leave that close to the end because I'm not going to pigeonhole myself into one quarterback if I need a couple extra dollars for a wide receiver I really want. That's going to be my game plan this week. So moving on to wide receivers, the obvious option is Cooper Kupp here at $9,100. We went cheaper running back. We're not going to go super expensive at quarterback. We're obviously going to use a cheap defense, so we have money to spend, and there's no better place to spend it than Cooper Kupp this week. The guy is basically the Derrick Henry of wide receivers. We know we're going to get each and every single week 10-plus targets, 7-plus catches, probably finds the end zone, 100-plus yards, so you can always pretty much lock in that bonus. And just the past 3 weeks, 37, 34, 29, and then even going further than that, 18 and 26. Like, Cooper Kupp is just a menace. He's facing Minnesota, who's actually allowing the most points per game to wide receivers this season. This is a close spread, about a 50-point over-under. We're playing in a dome, so you have to worry about weather. I mean, he's just a smash play this week. Very expensive, but we have money to spend, and I feel like there's no better place to spend it than Cooper Kupp this weekend, so I think he's an excellent cash game play. And then at this point, we might have money to spend up for another wide receiver. Guys like Keenan Allen, Justin Jefferson are probably my 2 favorite up top outside of Cooper Kupp. But I'm not sure if I can afford one yet. But there is one guy I know for sure I am plugging in this week, especially in cash games. And that's going to be Antonio Brown at $4,900. And it's pretty obvious. He's not going to be sneaky or anything. He's going to be quite popular. But no Chris Godwin, no Leonard Fournette, no Mike Evans. Antonio Brown's coming back. I mean, when he was playing games this season, he was getting targeted quite heavily. He's only played a handful of games, but 7, 3, 11, 8, and 13 targets. You take those 2 guys out of the equation. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Antonio Brown close to 15 targets in this game. I wouldn't say it's an amazing matchup versus Carolina, but Antonio Brown's one of the best wide receivers in football. It's Tom Brady throwing the ball. Tom Brady was awful last weekend, so he's coming out for vengeance this week. And this is just too cheap. I think we'd have interest in Antonio Brown if he was nearly $7,000. No Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. Now he's below $5,000. This is just a mispricing on DraftKings part. I realized they didn't know that all these guys were going to be out yet, but I mean, this is just too cheap for AB, and we're going to plug him in for cash games. Yes, we do have 2 Buccaneers, but because of their price points, they're $10,000 combined. That is way too low for being the focal points of the offense on Sunday. So once we plug in AB, we have around $5,200 remaining, and these are pretty much my 5 favorite plays on the slate. I'm not even sure if I need to make a core plays video. Like, these are my 5 favorite plays, just for anyone wondering. But $5,200 left. So wide receiver 3, tight end, defense, and a quarterback. I know the defense I want to plug in this week, and it's going to be the Atlanta Falcons versus Tim Boyle more than likely. I guess Jared Goff has a chance to play, but it sounds like that's very unlikely. So they're playing at home. Last I looked, they were 5.5-point favorites. I'm going to shift it a little bit, but I know the Falcons' defense isn't exactly great, but the Lions' offense with no Jared Goff and potentially no DeAndre Swift just sounds absolutely disgusting. So I feel pretty good about the Falcons at $2,600. And once you plug them in, we have around $6,000 left for our remaining spots, which actually is a lot. Like, we still have a quarterback left, and I think we could kind of just play around with it. And I'd say it's more so personal preference than anything. So let's just say we plugged in Justin Herbert, $7,200. I would like to be able to fit in Keenan Allen. He's $7,700, and that leaves us $3,300 left. That's not bad. We have Cole Kmet at $3,300. I am fine with really like any cheap tight end this week. I would say my 3 favorite are Jared Cook, Cole Kmet, and CJ Uzomah. If you want to spend up, I love Mark Andrews with Tyler Huntley. Not sure if Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill is going to play yet. I probably should have mentioned that a little bit. But if Tyreek Hill is out, Mecole Hardman, Byron Pringle become playable. If Travis Kelce is out, Blake Bell's certainly in play. He just got activated, I believe, yesterday. And he's only $2,500 if you had to go dirt cheap. But I actually don't think Cole Kmet looks too bad here. Seattle's not been good versus tight ends this year. Maybe Nick Foles will like Cole Kmet. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But he had 9 targets last week. He gets targets every single week. You can kind of lock him in for 5, maybe if not more, depending on the week. But I don't think that's a bad looking lineup if you went the Herbert route. So you have Herbert paired with Keenan Allen. We also have Justin Jackson in there. James Robinson, Ronald Jones, Cooper Kupp, Antonio Brown. I think I mentioned Cole Kmet already in the Falcons defense. That leaves 0 salary remaining. I don't think that's a bad looking lineup. If you wanted to go with a different quarterback, you can take out Keenan Allen, Cole Kmet. Like, I'm kind of locked in on that core right there. So I really think it's just between what quarterback you want, what wide receiver 3 and tight end you want to roll with this week. And I feel like a lot of people have a very similar build. So I would imagine there's going to be a lot of trains if you're playing cash games this weekend. So hopefully you're just on the right one. If you wanted to go the Matthew Stafford route paired with Cooper Kupp, you have around $5,700 left. If we plug in, and you could go anywhere with the wide receiver. I'm not sure if you'd be able to afford Justin Jefferson. Usually with $3,400 left, he's kind of like the run back option. If you're going with the Ram stack, yeah, you can still fit in the exact same thing here with Cole Kmet. I don't really want to use Evan Ingram, but that's not bad either. Yeah, the same thing going, but it's just Matthew Stafford. Then you have Cooper Kupp still, but it's ran back with Justin Jefferson. Then you still have Cole Kmet. So that's actually not bad looking either. If you wanted to go with Tyler Huntley, that probably allows you to spend up a little bit. Maybe we could play Mark Andrews. I'm probably not going to go there in cash games. I know I've been kind of building more towards a cash game build, but I want to see if we can get a good looking lineup here with Mark Andrews. We have to go really cheap, probably with wide receiver 3, but we could make some assumptions with maybe Tyreek Hill being out or something like that. So Mark Andrews is around $7,000, which is the most expensive I've seen him all season. But with Tyler Huntley, Mark Andrews has been amazing. 21 catches the past 2 weeks, well over 100 yards, 3 touchdowns, and over 30 fantasy points. Like, it's just, Tyler Huntley loves Mark Andrews. So we'd have $5,200 left if you happen to go the Huntley-Andrews route. And we just miss out on Odell, which kind of sucks because, I mean, since we already have Cooper Kupp, I guess it doesn't really suck that bad. But I would like Odell there. He's definitely my favorite play of the bunch right here. But you have to drop down a little bit. You could probably play around with it. But Mecole Hardman, Byron Pringle, they're all playable. I don't really love the way that looks, though. But if we take out Tyler Huntley and you go with the Jalen Hurts route, who I do like, I actually kind of like pairing up with Dallas Goedert this week. And if we go that route, $6,700 left. You have Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, T. Higgins. But for me personally, the Justin Herbert lineup was probably the best looking in my opinion. But I'm kind of trying to build around this core as of right now. Unless things change, if Austin Eckler happens to play, I'm not going to be playing Justin Jackson. But as for right now, I do feel like that's a pretty good starting point. With that being said, I think that'll be pretty much it for the video. So I hope it was helpful, and if it was, make sure you leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet already. If you want to take that one step further, get a fish number over on Patreon. Link is down below in the description for that. Cheat sheets, optimizes ownership projections, not just for the NFL, but the MLB, NBA, and NASCAR as well. And don't forget, this video was sponsored by PrizePicks. And as of right now, if you're new, sign over there. You can get a free money bonus up to $100 if you use code CPEN and tell them I sent you. I think that'll be it. I'll stop rambling. Hope you guys had a Merry Christmas, and I'll see you in the next one.